Arsenal 3, Slavia Prague 0. That's 10 wins on the spin in all competitions, 8 straight clean sheets. And last night, Max Dalman became a record holder as the youngest player to ever play in the Champions League. This is my match review episode of Arsenal 3, Slavia Prague 0 here at the Arsenal Match Reaction Show. Let's get started. Yes, hello guys, and welcome back to the Arsenal Match Reaction Show. I hope wherever you are well. As you heard in the intro, this is my match reaction video to Arsenal 3, Slavia Prague 0. Mikel Merino back doing his thing up front again. Did we even need Victor Gyökeres in the summer? That's what the question we're all asking, of course. No, I joke. It's great that we have Mikel Merino, but I am missing Victor Gyökeres already after just one performance, but we will get into that and more on this episode. We're going to go through the lineup as ever. We'll talk about what I thought the plan was from Mikel Arteta. I'm going to talk about the story of the game, and then I'm going to give too good, too bad. It's really hard to do too bad at the moment for Arsenal, but I think we might be able to find one or two moments in this game to talk about. So let's get straight into it, guys. Well, sorry, before we get straight into it, let's quickly just give a quick shout out. If you enjoy this episode, if you enjoy any episodes of the Arsenal Match Reaction Show, please leave a like on YouTube and click subscribe, of course. It means you'll get all of the content straight to you. And if you're on audio platforms, leave a review and hit follow. Again, all the podcasts will come straight to you that way. Let's do it. The lineup and the plan from Mikel Arteta. So we went strong in this game. Look, I think I wanted some rotation, that's for certain, but I didn't want as much rotation as some people that I saw in the build up to the game. I was seeing people talking about taking Rice out completely. But to be fair, he was on a yellow card and potentially suspended for the buying game, so I can understand that one. Definitely people talking about resting one of Saliba and Gabriel. I kind of like that. People talking about Harriman and Noose up front, wasn't sure on that one, but Mikel Arteta had a very clear intention, and it was to go out and get this game won. He went with a very strong team. Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba and Gabriel. They remained in the back four as has been our strongest set of defenders this year. We've seen more rotation in the left back spot. We saw Miles Lewis-Skelly in previous ties and previous games in the Champions League. We saw Piero Hincapié last night, and I thought he had a really good, strong performance. I believe he set a stat that he's the first Arsenal player to contest like 8 duels in a Champions League game and win 100% of them. We already have a very Mikel Arteta coded player there on our hands, don't we? The midfield, we saw Christian Norgard come in, Zubamendi, of course, suspended, Declan Rice and Ethan Nwaneri. Lots of chat about that midfield. I think, should Rice have been playing with his yellow card? I understand without Zubamendi there, you have to have Rice in. I get that. There was a world where I thought we might play Norgard and Merino in that midfield. I did think that might be an option with Leandro Trossard up front, but again, Mikel Arteta knows a lot more than I do. He picked Merino up front, and that worked really, really well in the end. Ethan Nwaneri, a mixed game for him. I really want to see Ethan figure this central position out, but I do just wonder, and I've said it before on the show, is this guy a final third player who's being forced to play a kind of 8 role where he's going to move the ball, kind of ping it around, try and mimic Martin Ødegaard maybe? I don't know. For me, I think he could just do with a game at right wing. Give him a game at right wing. Bukayo Saka needs a rest. We don't have Noni Madueke. He looks like a guy who needs some confidence, needs to play in his favourite spot on the pitch, which is in the final third. Or in the 10, give him a game where he's actually got that licence, doesn't have to come in and do as much of the build-up work. He's got the licence to play a pure 10, perhaps like Eze does. Eze didn't play in this game from the start, came off the bench, and it was Leandro Trossard out left with Bukayo Saka on the right and Victor Gyökeres up front. Bukayo Saka obviously scored the penalty, and I think he did well enough during the game, but both him and Leandro Trossard were really, really good, in my opinion, at helping us get up the pitch, where Mikel Merino probably wasn't able to do as much of that, but his finishing was superb. The plan from Mikel Arteta was really difficult to read because what we got was 10 to 15 minutes of Slavia Prague just being so direct, so energetic, a man-to-man press that was really difficult to deal with, and it's not something many teams do to Arsenal nowadays. A lot of teams set up with a mid block, which I think a lot of people are. We saw the low block for a long period of time. Now, when we see mid blocks, I think people misconstrue them as low blocks, and they're just thinking, "Oh, it's boring." They're just getting men behind the ball. But actually, I think what's been recognised is trying to stop the centre backs from passing is probably the best way of doing things. The way that Slavia Prague did this was just to charge everyone down. They were full full energy. It was like someone had put a Duracell battery in all of them, and they were really, really moving, pressing really, really hard, man to man, and it worked for the first 15 minutes. I think they had 4 shots in the first 12 minutes. A really, really impressive start from them. They weren't able to maintain it though. They weren't able to maintain it, and I think the interesting bit about the plan is how Mikel Arteta and his team started to change and vary up their positions to allow them to play through and around this press. And I mentioned Bukayo Saka and Leandro Trossard. I saw them coming deep a lot, coming central a lot, to come and get the ball, to come and make the press really, really difficult. There was a couple of times Saliba stepped into midfield. We haven't seen that in a while. We have seen it before though. Saliba stepped into the midfield, and one of them was a striding run. One of them was stepping into that space to receive the ball. It gave Slavia Prague a real issue. They were not sure what to do with him. If he was stepping into that space, who was supposed to go and close him down? Was it one of the 3 forwards, as they were doing when he was in our back line, or was it the midfielder? And if the midfielder did it, does he leave his man? They were just very confused. I think that made a big difference. Same with Bukayo Saka and Leandro Trossard. Was a defender supposed to go and pick them up, or was a midfielder supposed to drop off them, then creating a spare man with Ethan, Christian Norgard, or Declan Rice? So it was clever, I did think. We decided to bring more people into that central zone just to create the overloads that we needed. And that allowed us to get around this really, really impressive press from Slavia Prague. Of course, they were going direct to make their chances up to that big Chori fella. He was huge, 6'6", substituted just after half time. Was giving us some issues. Gabriel and Saliba were dealing with him quite nicely. So I think that was the plan. But what was the story of the game? How did it play out? So I think you'll know, if you've listened to my instant reaction, you'll know what I think of the Slavia Prague performance. I thought, fair enough, they had a good start, and they were clearly feeding off their crowd and doing okay in the first 10 to 15 minutes, but they gift wrapped 3 goals. The penalty, I've heard some people say, oh, I'm not sure it should be a penalty. It's a UEFA penalty. It's absolutely a UEFA penalty. And 20% that should be a penalty. We saw it last year in the Inter Milan game where there was a rubbish penalty given against us. If that's going to be given, we should get that penalty. Do I want it in football? No, I don't want that to be a penalty in football, but it is, and we've been on the wrong end of it. So until that law gets changed, that was absolutely a penalty. Stonewall. Bukayo Saka tucks it away. Then for the second goal, just after half time, Leandro Trossard is allowed to run down the left wing. That's fairly poor defending, but the centre backs it's absolutely criminal how Mikel Merino is allowed to just drift into that spot and just provide a really good finish. Of course, Mikel Merino is a really good finisher. He's got great timing. He's got great spatial awareness in the box as well. He knows where the spaces are and the pockets that he can get into. And it's not the first time we've seen him pop up in between centre backs. However, this felt criminal. The Slavia Prague players one of them at least is looking directly at him. The other one is in no man's land. It's such a simple cross for Leandro Trossard and a simple finish in the end for Mikel Merino. So, the defenders have gift wrapped us a penalty. They've gift wrapped us that goal, and they went for one more with the keeper this time. No idea what he's thinking. No idea what he's thinking. He comes to catch it in his midriff, but the ball is very clearly there to be punched, potentially to be caught. That might be possible, but a little bit more difficult. Should have gone and punched it. Take everyone out if you're going to come that far out of the goal. You have to get the ball and get everyone else. He doesn't do either. And Mikel Merino, all he has to do is get a touch on it. Very brave, good position, good ball from Declan Rice. But I don't think we can class this as Arsenal brilliance. I think this is a really poor goalkeeping error. And we had 3 goals just handed to us on a plate, which meant that once we'd figured out how to play around the press, Slavia Prague did make this quite easy for us. And I thought to myself, wow, these are goals that Arsenal just do not give away anymore. I've watched Arsenal for a very long period of time, and I think we've seen all of those goals go in against Arsenal. But not in this Mikel Arteta team. We don't see those standards drop. We don't see goalkeepers come rushing out and make mistakes. We don't see defenders just leave a man to drift in unmarked. Like, it's not allowed. The standards are too high at Arsenal. And I did think, wow, away from home in the Champions League, we've come to a place that really difficult atmosphere, and we've seen 15 minutes of a really good aggressive display from Slavia Prague, and they'd set themselves up, right? They had set themselves up. I think this is a really important story. They're at home in the Champions League. It's a free hit for them. If they beat Arsenal, club defining result. It will be one that they'll talk about for years and years and years. If they lose, doesn't matter. And they've started really well, and they had the atmosphere. They had that amazing tifo. The fans were right up for it. They just gift wrapped it. They gifted us the goals. And I think the tension in that stadium, if they don't give away that silly penalty, if they don't give away a goal, minutes into the second half, the tension in that stadium would have ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. And you can picture it now. Every time they would have got the ball at 0-0, if the game had gone on much longer or into the second half at 0-0, the noise level would have gone up. The ball would have been pumped forward into that direct space that they're trying to attack, and maybe into that big striker, and they'll try and play off him. The tension would have risen. The noise level would have risen. But because they just gave us goals, the game state completely changed. And I think it was a really, really, it's a big compliment to Arsenal that we just don't do that anymore. We don't give games the opportunity to develop in that way that could have last night. We took advantage, of course. Bukayo Saka has to hit that penalty. Mikel Merino has to put the good finish on it. But, I think Slavia Prague will be licking their wounds a little bit and thinking, we started so well, what could have been? But yeah, let's talk quickly, too good, too bad, before I go to kind of wrap up this full match review. So, too good, too bad. I said it yesterday in the instant reaction. Mikel Merino, clearly man of the match. And I stick with that. So he will get one of my, good badges for the week. I'm going to give the other one to Mikel Arteta, right? Because I think as fans, it was easy, really easy to look at this and go, this is Slavia Prague. We're favourites for the Premier League. We're favourites for the Champions League. We should just sweep these guys apart with our second team. And I even heard one other prominent podcaster say I'd take a draw, I don't really mind. And not take this game seriously. Mikel Arteta took this game very seriously. He put players out who could potentially be suspended for a huge game against Bayern on the other side of the international break. He put players like Urian Timber out, who could desperately do with a break, and we have a really, really, really solid alternative in Ben White. He put players out like Bukayo Saka, who, whilst we don't have too many alternatives, is absolutely integral for the success of our season to be fit. And he really took this game seriously. Plus, he made the tactical adjustments when we were being pressed man to man and how we dealt with that. And I think he'd done his homework. I really do think he'd done his homework. He had a plan to get around the physical game that Slavia Prague were putting on. He had a plan to get around the direct press. And he knew that this was going to be a potentially tricky game. And I think, it was 3-0, but that might flatter us a touch. Like I say, we would gift wrap the goals. And I think if we'd had a weaker team out there, one that maybe included, and this isn't a slight on any of these players that I'm going to name here, right? But one that maybe included Mikel Merino and Christian Norgard as the double pivot and no Declan Rice. One of Saliba and Gabriel dropping out and Christian Mosquera coming in. Ben White playing, having not played much for many, many months. I think if we had a team like that out there, that 10, 15 minutes of difficulty maybe stretches into 30, 40 minutes, a half. And suddenly we're looking at a far more difficult European tie. So credit to Mikel Arteta, took it seriously, had a plan, did his homework, didn't underestimate Slavia Prague. And he's proved me wrong again, because I always look to some of these Champions League games, the lesser Champions League games, and think, this could be an opportunity to rotate. And I got that wrong against Athletic Bilbao, and I've got that wrong here against Slavia Prague. Mikel Arteta has picked the perfect lineup for both. So fair play to him. The two bad, I mean, as much as Mikel Merino is a good, I think we saw his limitations at times when we were looking to build play. Just wasn't stretching the pitch in the way Victor Gyökeres does. And the fact that we don't have Kai Havertz, Victor Gyökeres, Gabriel Jesus, or even Gabriel Martinelli, who can do that job, is a real worry for me. And I just hope we can get through the Sunderland game on Saturday. However we do it, get a win. The ugliest of 1-0 wins for me will do in that game because of the players we're missing up front. That's not even including Nottingham Madueke and Martin Odegaard as well, by the way. That's just the four that play or can play in the striker position. So I think there's that limitation, and that's the bad thing that's going on at Arsenal at the moment. I think we saw that kind of play out a little bit with Mikel Merino in this game. I'm going to really struggle to think of another bad. I am, because otherwise Arsenal were really good. Really good. Yeah, we would gift wrap the goals. Yeah, Mikel Arteta deserves a lot of credit, but the players deserve a lot of credit too. They do. They handled the atmosphere. They handled the pressure in the early phases, and I'm struggling to think of anything bad to say about the team in this instance. So let's wrap it up there, guys. Like I say, any win will do against Sunderland for me. Any win will do. Let's get our players back on the other side of the international break. That's the most important thing right now. We are setting records all over the place. Shout out to Max Dowman, 15 years old, the youngest ever Champions League player to have ever done it. It's really incredible. I thought it was brilliant when he came on. Shout out to the defence, 8 clean sheets in a row. One more, we break our club record. A wonderful run that we're on in terms of the defence. And you could see with the penalty decision that was overturned at the end, thankfully and correctly, that the defence were absolutely buzzing about that. So really delighted. I'm going to do a preview episode of the Sunderland game. So make sure you hit follow or subscribe, depending on whether you're listening on audio platforms or on YouTube, so that you don't miss that episode. You don't miss my instant reaction and my match review of the Sunderland game as well. It really helps. If you would be so kind to leave a like on YouTube, a review on audio platforms, but also, guys, comment any thoughts that you've got on the YouTube video. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, let me know. Let's have a chat. All that's left to say, guys, thank you for following. Thank you for listening. I'll speak to you again very soon. Up the Arsenal.